mute your phone, Shamir, if that's what it's on, because then we'll get, all right, so we are now streaming live. Hey, this is 𝗂𝗲𝗿, and it's Thursday evening, 6 p.m. Central Time. And remember, this is the Pitranomics Thursday Talk. And today we're going to talk about business planning. So if you have the link, if you're on Facebook, hopefully it's in the comments. If you're on the Zoom, please check out the link in the chat. I know that was a question about business planning. So I have actually not done this template. I figured I'd go through it with you. We can all ask questions. Now, those of you on Facebook, I cannot see you or hear you. So please post any questions in the comments and I'll be notified of your question. Hopefully just do it in the chat here. I'll see those. So if everybody has the link to, there's a template, a business plan template for a startup business. And I went through it just to see if I thought it was a good exercise, and I do. Now, depending on the business, this template may not work for you, particularly if you're pursuing very specialized funding, which is kind of what I do. But it's a good way to get what you need to think about before you start your business on paper, which is very important. And I'm going to preface this before we even start going through the template. And you know what? I am not recording, so I'm just going to record here too. Oh, you know what? It's on Facebook Live. Don't worry about that. So the important thing to realize when you want to make a good business is be mindful of your financials. A lot of people get into business, they make money, they don't keep careful track of their expenses and their revenue. And I can tell you, I was the one that did that. For the first 3 years, I just had the money coming in and things were up here. There was no third-party verified by my CPA of the legitimacy of each parts of my business. The reason why I want to say that is because if you start out keeping correct records, if you start out having a good CPA involved, it will save you a lot of trouble. And also keeping good records help you see when a project or your business has gone off the rails, and you'll be able to act more quickly than if you don't have careful records. So if everybody has this template up, it's by score. A couple of weeks ago, we had Fallon on, Fallon Brown, and she mentioned that she used this as a template. Keep in mind that business plans, once made, can be revised and should be revised, revisited at least annually. One of the things I like about this is it says, okay, you're going to put all of your company name, address, and all that. My caution is if you're starting a business in an entity name, make sure you have all of your entity documents handy and you have what's called a registered agent and you have your legal address. Those don't have to be the same things. So the registered agent, for people like me, when there's very few employees, the registered agent is someone who is designated to be available during business hours. If you need to have correspondence sent to you, especially official correspondence, that's always a great thing to have available for your business. I did not have that, but a couple of years ago, I initiated a lawsuit and it was imperative that I have one. And the paperwork starts flying. You don't want it to come to your house because when it's sent to your address of record, it's assumed that it's received. If you don't have that registered agent that's charged with making sure any documents that you get are provided to you and responded to, you could get yourself into trouble because it is assumed that you've received that document. Now, your business address can be wherever it is you actually go to do your business. I office out of a house that I use as my office. I call it my office. And that is where I actually conduct business, but that is not even my business's legal address either because I'm not there all the time. So keep in mind, I have the address for the attorney that drafted my entity documents. I have my registered agent's address. I have my place of business, which is my office. And then I have my legal mailing address where documents that aren't official can be sent directly to me. That's a lot of addresses, but it keeps things straight. You should also put that in your business plan. What do you need for your addresses? I like how it reminds you to have a website and a URL, a website URL. I do not have a website for my investing business. And I've been told that I should, so that is something I'm working on for 2022. I haven't needed it before, but since I'm branching out into different types of real estate investing, particularly with large sums of money, then they want to be able to Google and see that I have some established address. That is why I am going to be looking for that established address that Google will find and the website address that Google will find. So when people are looking to investigate me, they'll see some credibility on my website. And I will show some of the projects that I've done and, put my resume up there, some, maybe some referrals. It'll be very basic, but it will lend that credibility. Included in this template is a confidentiality agreement. It's not a very good one, but it does remind you that you need to get one. The confidentiality agreement tells people, or it says you will not disclose any information, but it doesn't infer a consequence if that person does. So it's useless. That's a lesson I also learned the hard way. A contract without remedies for breach is useless. They can agree to do it. Both parties can come together and then somebody can breach the contract, which means violate the terms of the agreement. And if there are no provisions or remedies for that breach in the contract, then you have to sue or adjudicate in order to get your remedy. That's expensive, it's time consuming, it's emotionally draining. I don't recommend it. Just make sure you get the appropriate attorney to draft your confidentiality agreements. I did sign one that basically said that if I violated the agreement, then I would have to pay $10,000. And they had my credit card, so that in case I violated the agreement, and I had my reasons for going into that agreement. But what was really funny is my card got stolen, so that card was canceled. Well, now they really have no remedy for breach. Not that I'm planning to breach it, but I'm just saying, if you're going to use that kind of a bind for the remedy, make sure it passes, say, if that credit card becomes obsolete. Now, the executive summary. I love this. You should be able to speak very knowledgeably about your business. I have a pet peeve when I'm speaking to people and they can't tell me what they do so that I can understand. And let me make that point. You have to be able to communicate your business structure, direction, mandate to an audience that has no idea what it is you're doing in such a way that they are at least intrigued enough to know more about it. Because if you can't do that, you can't generate any business. So an overview of your business idea or your actual business. One of the things I am is I'm a real estate, I'm an investor, but we'll talk about me as a realtor. As a realtor, I serve buyers and sellers in the Collin County area. Now, I do represent other buyers and sellers on an ad hoc basis, but the reason for providing that limitation is because I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and it is huge. If I just try to serve the entire Dallas-Fort Metroplex, well, first of all, I'm not as deeply knowledgeable about the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex as someone else might be in a particular area. And it's just impossible to do so. So you're setting yourself up for failure without giving yourself some guidelines. I say Collin County because I know Collin County. Now, on the chance that I represent people who either selling and buying outside of Collin County, I make sure I do my due diligence on behalf of that client in particular. So while I will be knowledgeable about other areas for a particular client, If it's not a client on whose behalf I'm willing to go through that extra work, I feel it's best served for them if I refer them to someone who is extremely knowledgeable in that area. It's a good idea to know the limitations of your business plan. The next part is a description of your product or service. As I've said, I represent buyers and sellers in Collin County. I don't know if there's any much more to say about that. Goals for the business. Where do you expect to be in your business in the first year, in year 3 or year 5? I find for realtors, especially new realtors that I've spoken with, they'll have very unrealistic ideas about what they think they're going to accomplish. I want to make $1 million. Okay, well, great. $1 million on an average, or let's say optimal commission of 3%, you're selling a lot of houses, right? That's not what I look for. I look for numbers of houses, not really so much about the production. I like to keep a certain number of houses on my record in MLS so that I look like a legitimate realtor. I don't have a production goal because that's not where the most of my revenue comes in from my business. But for that piece of business, I like to do 3 to 4, sometimes 5 properties a year. And that's it. That's all I need to pretty much say I've got a presence on MLS. But if you're a realtor, for example, that wants to have income, then your plan for that has to be extremely detailed. How much commission do you want to make? How much production do you need to generate that commission? How many people do you need to get to? Not even that, how many houses do you have to list or look for in order to generate that commission? How many people do you have to talk to get the clients that you need to get to that commission? And how many leads do you have to generate and follow up with each day? You have to backtrack from what it is you want to accomplish all the way back to what you need to do every day. That's the importance of a business plan. It helps you accomplish long-term goals by telling you what you need to do every day. And your proposed target market. I got some really great about this, some great advice about this as far as being a realtor. I was told to create the avatar of my perfect client. Who is the person I feel that I could best serve? And I decided that person would be someone who is an empty nester, new to empty nesting, might want to downside, might want to just sell their house and move to Florida or to Mexico or whatever, who's looking to make a major life change. And also those people buying their house, looking for the good schools, looking for a place for their kids, looking for sports, looking for infrastructure for their children, because that's where I was 16 years ago. So those are I have 2, those are my avatars. Those are the people that I think I can help the best with the experience that I have. Who is your competition? Now, I think this takes a lot of careful thinking. When you try to imagine, why would someone use me as a realtor over someone else? I don't have the best social media platform out there. A lot of female realtors, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, they get business because they're pretty. And that works for them. Great. That's not my style. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It just doesn't suit me. And I don't think that the people that are going to like working with me are going to respond to my trying to be something that I'm not. Took me a while to get to that level of confidence. Now I look at interacting with a client as a two-way street. It's not just, what can I do for you? I'm trying to do everything to get any particular client's business. I'm like, how are we going to work together? Am I going to enjoy working with this client? Is this client going to enjoy and benefit from working with me? So the competition has to be someone that can provide the specific things that I can provide as a realtor, which is a very detailed knowledge of the contract, a very analytical mind to understand all the ramifications of their housing decisions, not just the price of the house, but what makes it a good resale value for them, what I need. I have a good team to help them get good financing. I know how to read loan documents. Those are the kinds of things where I excel. I am not that person that has the beautiful social media. I respect it, and I will acquire that capability on my team, but that is not where I bring the value. It's not my superpower. And so, management team and their prior experience. If you are someone that's a sole proprietor, but you're doing business as a corporation or whatever, you don't have a management team, part of my Pitranomics theory is like you have to have the right professional help. So even though there's no one working for you, you make sure you find those right partnerships that can help you. I've just mentioned that you have to create an entity. So you need to make sure you have a good attorney. You need to make sure you have a good tax strategist. I believe in those. I think I talk about those all the time. Tax strategists can be CPAs. Sometimes they're attorneys, but they are the people that help you decide how your business will make its revenue in the next period, so the next quarter, the next year. They are not the people you bring your receipts to and say, okay, this is what I've done, and they file your taxes, because any vaguely competent CPA can do that. These are the people that help you position yourself as far as revenue timing and taxes and growth so that your business grows securely and predictably. Volatility in business growth may be great when it's on the upswing, but it really blows when it's on the downswing. So you want to make sure you're growing steadily. And this other part, if anybody doesn't have this template, please either comment in the Facebook page or in the chat, but the financial outlook for the business. Now, I mentioned that as a realtor, that's not really where I'm looking for. I'm looking for number of transactions so that my production looks legitimate, but it's really important if you're going to be an investor, which I am, that you have financial outlook, that you know how many properties you want to try and buy, what type of properties you want to try and buy, how you're going to finance those properties, get them ready for the income producing activity you want them to be in, and then how you're going to transmute those into permanent financing, if that's what you're going to do, how you're going to maintain those properties. So I do not manage the properties that I own because I specialize in acquisition. If I spend all my time managing, I could not grow. That is where I recognize I need somebody else. So I made a goal, I think 2 years ago during 2020, that I wanted to acquire a certain number of doors, and I wanted to have for them to have I have leverage goals. So I don't want to be like 85% leveraged on my portfolio. I have a certain target number that I have a certain cash on cash return for the equity I have in those properties that I try to achieve, but I don't really know what I have for sure until I get to the end of the year. Not every property is going to perform right at where I want to do, but with a plan, I know that if I get a property that far exceeds my goals, then maybe I have room to take a property that doesn't quite meet those particular parameters, but might meet another parameter. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to make sure those details were understood. So once you've written all of that down, I would suggest you talk to someone, a mentor who is in the business that you're trying to grow, and have them look over your executive summary. Even though it's not everything about your business, they can, with 5 minutes, look at it and say, I think you might be unrealistic, or wow, I think you're on track, or here, I think you need help. That is the best advice right there. Before you actually put a whole lot of money into growing that business, get that analysis of your business plan right there. Now, I have a lot of people looking at my business plans. I have my lenders, I have my CPA, my tax strategist, the person who first got me into real estate, which was our wealth advisor, the person that looks over our our stock portfolio. He's also a real estate investor. So during our meetings with him about our stocks, I bring my documents in to him to look at, and he'll give bracing critique. Sometimes I don't like it, sometimes I do, but it's always very valuable to hear. And he looks at my stuff at least once a year, if not more. Now, the next section, this is part 2, is your company description. I'll take a brief break. Is there someone that has a question? I see a message here in the chat. Let me see. Oh, that was just 2. Okay. So a mission statement. What I find is people get really wordy about their mission statements, and even the one in the instruction in the template seems a little wordy to me. So I would say have 2. Have why you're in it, what exactly it is that you're trying to accomplish, and be very honest. And then create the nice fluffy sounding thing that's going to go on the documents that go out. You need to be clear why you're doing it, and you need to understand what will make your offering compelling to someone else. Those are 2 different things. On your internal documents, make sure you stay on track with what it is you're trying to accomplish. On your external documents, it's like your external books. Make sure it's prepared in the best way to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish when you're giving those documents out. Company philosophy and vision. So one of the, I'm looking at the template, it says, what values does your business live by? And this one says honesty, integrity, fun, innovation, and community are values that might be important to your business philosophy. So what I don't see there is profitability, which is certainly going to be in any company philosophy I'm going to have. I mean, I don't do my business as a strategy or a charity, so I want it to be profitable. I do want integrity, but I want it to be long lasting. I want it to be ongoing. I want it to be something that does no harm. So maybe that covers community, honesty, and integrity. As a real estate agent, I try to be the very best advocate for my clients that I possibly can. Every bit of competence I can bring.
What's after a meeting?
Sorry, I heard something. I would like to make sure that I give the best that I can for my clients. As a real estate investor, if I have a tenant in a property of mine, I don't want them to feel like they're being taken advantage of in that property. I want them to be excited, even grateful that they have it, because I'm certainly excited and grateful to have a good tenant in my property. The third part that says company goals. I think this is an important item to address, but it is very specific. I think that when you finalize that, you absolutely have to have professional help to do that. Your company goals will have you developing milestones and benchmarks and key performance indicators for your business. And if it's a new business, you really need to get that experienced person telling you what it is you need to look for. So while I am glad that's here and it's a great template, I just want to say, please, 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 at the very least, get a tax person, get a lender, finances person, whoever's helping you with your working capital, and get a mentor to help you fine tune both. Oh, let's just go through all of this. Your company goals, your target market, and your industry. If you're new, these aren't things you understand very well. It doesn't mean you can't launch and do well. It just means you need help to provide you the direction and the roadmap. So I don't know if there are any other comments to add to that, except for when you're a real estate investor and you come in when the market's great, it's very easy to fool yourself that, oh my gosh, things are going to be great like this forever. It's a good thing if you're a real estate investor to speak to lenders, because long-term lenders have seen all the cycles of real estate investing, and they can tell you the best thing to do is to make sure, even when things are good or even if things are bad, that you stress test all of your assumptions and numbers to last and be profitable throughout all of the cycles. And almost any industry or business is going to have cycles. I couldn't speak to retail. I wouldn't be a good resource. But someone who does lending to retail, someone who's an experienced retailer. Those would be the kind of people you would need to help you make sure you understand your industry and how to determine those goals. Whoops, went away. Now, what I like here is that it includes understanding what your legal structure should be. Let me tell you what I think most people do in real estate investing. They say, well, I'm going to invest in real estate. They buy a few properties in their name, or they wholesale in their name. They don't know what they're doing, and they mess up and they have a problem in their name. Or they go out and they don't speak to an attorney. They have someone, and by attorney, I mean someone who is knowledgeable in the real estate investing circle. Somebody creates an entity for them and it does not hold up in case there's a problem. I do know of one person that, it's not me, but it's someone I know, on their first flip, failed to address a mold issue. So they knew about it. I am really not sure why it wasn't addressed. I didn't know them at the time they were actually flipping the house, but they painted over it and sold it. This was a flip, remember, so it changed hands. In the disclosure statement, there was no acknowledgement that there had been anything like that wrong with the house. Well, the mold came back, the new buyers did their sleuthing, asked some innocuous questions, found out who had done the work, spoke to the people who had done the work, found out that yes, there had been mold there, got pictures of the fact that there was mold there and that it had been painted over and not remediated, well, no proof of remediation, and there was a lawsuit. I believe that they did settle. I don't think that that new flipper intentionally meant to cause harm. But when you're new in the area of flipping homes and the property changes hands to a layperson, to another seller, you as the flipper, no matter how long you've been in the business, is assumed to know more and be in a position of greater strength than the person that you're selling to. So you're just setting yourself up for failure. The reason why I go through all that is if you had the appropriate legal structure and you bought and sold the house within that legal structure, well, your entity might be assailed by that lawsuit. You might lose everything you put into that business, but they can't get to your personal stuff. So your personal property, your stock portfolio, anything like that, if it's not properly protected and you do something that is risky in your business, it could creep over and impact your personal assets. Now, what I recommend when you're doing your business structure, your business planning, not only do you look at structuring your business in the appropriate legal entity, but you also look at protecting your personal assets from any fallout from your business. A lot of people don't think about that. You don't just protect yourself in this business, create that entity, you shield everything else. Nobody told me that. I did not do it. I'll just put that out there. I was a walking liability, but I have tightened ship since. So once you have gone through that first part, part 3 says to identify your products and services. So as a realtor, I do sell the services of representing buyers and sellers in residential homes. That's pretty narrow. I don't have anything that needs to be manufactured. I do need to have a lot of support to get that done. So if I, as a realtor, want to, as a new realtor, brand new realtor, want to go out and help someone buy a house, well, I can't just get my license and go off. I have to hang my license with a broker, because basically I am not able to help a person buy or sell real estate. My broker is. My broker, by our agreement, says this agent can work on behalf of the broker to represent buyers and sellers. And this is an important distinction. The broker is actually the person that represents you. It's your agent that's acting on behalf of the broker in your particular transaction. And so brokers have something called errors and omissions insurance, so that if something goes wrong, that's not intentionally negligent, then the client can be covered and the broker's not sued to the extent of their E&O insurance. So it's a way of protecting the broker from the actions of the agent. Now, keep in mind, and this is something I did not know until about a year into the industry, that the E&O protects the broker. So if it can be seen that the agent was acting negligently and intentionally, then that can become a problem for the agent, but the broker is protected. I would suggest you speak to the appropriate attorneys and insurance agents about how to inoculate yourself from your dealings as an agent. For other people who are doing other kinds of business, there are comparable products that protect you in the event something happens untoward in your business. Even if it's not intentional, you need to make sure you're always protected. I will speak on that ad infinitum, so I'm gonna just keep going. One of the things that I have been told that if you're going into business and you want to differentiate yourself, you need to solve a problem that someone else isn't solving as well as you do. I'm going to tweak that and say there needs to be room for you to address the problem in that industry. You don't have to do it differently than anyone else, but if you need to make sure you know there's enough room in that industry for you to serve the clients the way you wish to serve them or the way you're prepared to serve them. So since I am not into big production, there's plenty of room for me to do the 3, 4, 5 transactions a year and not take from anybody else. Now, if I wanted to go in big in my neighborhood, for example, where I live, they have some heavy hitter agents. There's one called Paulette Green, and there are a couple of others. Honestly, I don't remember. If I wanted to go in and take market share for them, I'd be in for a fight. So you need to know about that. You need to know what the entrenched competitors have to offer that you don't. You need to find your niche and then dig in and just work that, and then expand from there from a knowledge base, my opinion. Of course, do what you want. And then the next part, any proprietary features that give you a competitive advantage. I think for new business people, they don't tend to have that. Maybe they do, but I think they don't tend to have that. But as you gain experience, you will figure out what it is that you do better than other people, or you do in a unique fashion that appeals to other people. And that's what you need to keep working on, that which distinguishes you positively in getting that business done. I like this one. How will you price your product or service? I am not bringing a product to market. I don't really have experience with that. And as a realtor, we have our own guidelines in the industry as to what our pricing should be. Now, as a realtor, I can't say that the price for all realtors is XYZ. I can negotiate my commission with people. I can lower it if I wish for a client that brings me multiple deals, like 3 or 4 more. Of course, I will, excuse me, consider negotiating, but my general feeling is I bring a lot to the table. If it's what you want, then you should pay for it, because I'm not going to offer or try to get you to give me whatever it is you sell at a discount. And if I can't negotiate on my own behalf, then you probably shouldn't think I can negotiate on your behalf. So part 4, the marketing plan. I actually don't have words of wisdom or advice about that because I am horrible at marketing, but I'm getting better. So I don't have much to say about that. As far as advice, if there's anyone that wants to comment or can comment about marketing, I'd love to hear it, but I'm still working on it. So there you go. Market research. Now, I think of marketing as how you get your message out to the public, but market research is understanding and being able to analyze your business. As a realtor, I don't think I do the greatest job in that, in understanding from a macro perspective what my business is doing, because I don't feature very large there. However, from an investor standpoint, I do try to understand with great depth what it is a particular product that I'm trying to buy is doing and will do, what its competitors are in that submarket, what are the likely obstacles I will have to face, what is the likely profitability I can get, is it acceptable to me, are there ways I think I can exceed that, etc. So I do that research as an investor, mainly because it's something that I plan to hold for a while. If you have that template in front of you, I really do like the part that says, look at the total size of your industry. Because if it's tiny and there are already established competitors, maybe you need to tweak your approach. If it's huge and there are very few people in there, then you have, I guess, a wider space for some mistakes. The next part are, what are your barriers to entry? And I want to address this specifically with investing, because I get questions as an investor, like, how much money do you need to invest? Can you invest with no money? Are there any deals anywhere? How much is it going to cost me to rehab a house? Blah, blah, blah. I get those kind of questions from almost every potentially new investor. These are my guidelines. If I go into a new project and let's say a house, I like to have at minimum 30% of what I think that house is going to be worth at hand. This is what I recommend. If you're going to go into hard money, you need to have some reserves. You have to bring money to the table, you have to close, you have to have enough money to start your rehab if that's what you're doing a distressed house, and you have to have money for contingencies. So at least 30%. I am now in the position of going through getting bridge financing. It's my first time, it's quite the process. How do I want to say? They really want to get all inside of your business to understand if you're a good risk. But is it a high startup cost to do this particular project? Yes. I would say we're bringing 30% to the table to have available of the total project cost, not the total project value. And then the rest of it's going to come from what's called a bridge financing loan. We'll go in there and get the property started. We'll get it renovated. It's going to take a long time for this particular property. And at the end, we're going to move into permanent financing, which has to be approved before we can even get the bridge funding. That's what I think is interesting. I have to be approved for the final financing before I can even get the interim financing. So very high upfront capital costs to get into that. Now, I have heard people say, don't ever use your money for real estate investing, always use other people's money. And that's true, you can. But other people's money always costs something. And the less you have in the deal, the more that money costs. If the deal can accommodate the ever increasing amounts your capital will cost that you don't want to put in it, then yes, go for it. But my deal metrics generally don't accommodate that. So there is capital of my own brought to the table. One of the things and the barriers to entry that they mentioned on this template is unionization in your industry. Now, I am a real estate investor in Texas, we don't have unions to deal with. If you are working in a state where they do have unions, that becomes a really big barrier to entry, because understanding how to work with the unions and understanding the costs implied with working with unionized labor means running a rental job is going to look very different than it does in a state where there is no a strong union. Now, that doesn't mean that those tradespeople don't have strong associations and that they're taken advantage of. It just means there's an extra little hurdle that you need to understand. And this is where I strongly recommend you have a mentor that can help you navigate that process. It can be what takes your project down if you don't know what you're doing. Part 3 talks about threats and opportunities. It uses a SWOT analysis with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What I will say, just to kind of explain all of this, get yourself the right professional help when you're going into a business in which you don't have any experience. If you do have experience, then you can do a lot of this yourself, but you should still get an objective opinion. So either way, get advice when creating this part of your business plan, understanding all of those. That SWOT analysis is a useful tool, but make sure you have some objectivity in helping you analyze what you should do. And then there's part 4, product, service, features, and benefits. I can't really speak so much to that because I provide a service mostly on my own behalf. I do work on behalf of a few of the investors, and they pretty much think, if not a lot like I do, enough like me, so that I really don't have to think about the product specific features. Generally speaking, if I'm working for an investor, they like the way I approach things. I don't really have to differentiate myself from there further. I'd appreciate any input from someone about niche products or bringing to market a product that does address that. Not my strong suit, so I won't try to give a lot of advice there. Again, there's a section on your target customer. I think I spoke a little bit about my customer avatar, my ideal customer avatar that works for your target customer. As a realtor, I did struggle with trying to figure out in the beginning who would be best suited for me, and I took quite a few clients on. Some of them were very painful for me to deal with. I don't do that anymore. If a client becomes emotionally draining for me to deal with, I let them go. Or if they feel I am not appropriate for them, I let them go. So I think it is important to identify your target customer or your target client. I think you should be as specific as you can in identifying it. I was advised to give them names, so I did. I'm not going to share because they're funky names. And that just sort of describes who is going to work well with you and who is going to resonate with you, who you're going to resonate with, so that the business relationship is mutually beneficial. That's what I believe. If you resonate with them, they resonate with you, the synergy comes together, something magical happens, both of you come away very happy, satisfied, and enriched by the experience. To me, that is success. They have a section here about identifying your key competitors. What I like that they say is one of the biggest mistakes you can make in a business plan is to claim you have no competition. And I believe that's true. You should always try to understand who your competition is, and you should write down the avatars. You should describe the avatars of your competitor for the type of customer that you want to attract or the client that you want to attract. Try to figure out the avatars of those that might also be appealing to that target audience. See if there's any of those features that you need or that you like to acquire. And if you can't, or don't want to, see if there's something else you can bring as value proposition to attracting those clients. I think it's definitely important to look at your competitors, not with envy, but with respect, because most of your competitors, you'll have to be in some kind of relationship with anyway. Learn how to respect your competitors, learn how to grow from watching them. That's pretty much what I've got to say about that. I want to take a just little temperature check. Does anyone have a question or comment or disagree or anything with what I've said so far? I'd welcome some feedback. From anybody? Okay, let's get back on it. Number 7 and number 8 talk about positioning and marketing. And like I said before, I've not been that great at that from a realtor standpoint. Now, as far as an investor standpoint, I will say for me, I identified certain criteria that I wanted to pursue. Certain things that if they weren't in place, I would simply not pursue the opportunity. And I've kind of honed that. I can quickly go through topical information and say, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That did not come immediately. So don't get discouraged if you miss out on a deal you think you should have gotten, because that happened to me, or take on a deal maybe that you shouldn't, which has also happened to me. You can learn from the one and you can learn from the other. It helps you hone that skill that you need to do well. So my view is, if you try to position yourself too narrowly from the beginning, you may miss the opportunity to learn and grow in an area that could be very beneficial to you. I'm trying to think of someone else I know who runs a business I could speak to that about. I can't really come up with anything there. Section 9 in that talks about a promotional budget. How much do you plan to spend on the marketing and advertising outreach? Now, when I started, I had no money set aside for marketing, or actually for networking or for any of that. I didn't think about it. I was like, let me find a deal, let me find a deal. I would like to say, don't just think about money in your promotional budget. Think about the time it takes you to get what you need done. Because if you're very, very busy, you don't have the opportunity to network to get the things done that you want. That's what I learned. It took so much time, so much chasing of deals, so much second guessing myself, so much time and energy just spent until I got my first deal, that by the time I got it, I was exhausted. And I was like, oh, finally. Well, that's when the work starts. So you have to budget time and energy as well, not just money. That's really the only thing I want to add there is, when you look at that, make sure you consider that resource. Uh-oh, somewhere that went away. Here we go. Okay, pricing. Again, that's not something I really had to deal with. I had industry guidelines on pricing as a realtor. And I did go to a real estate educational program. It's Lifestyles Unlimited. And they helped me with some of the initial guidelines for how to assess whether or not a deal was good. I don't really have a lot of experience with trying to determine pricing. Although I will say, even with Lifestyles Unlimited, I think they were a great group to get me started. I don't necessarily follow all of their guidelines now, but I think it was good for me to have something to go with from the beginning. And then through experience, kind of hone what worked for me. So don't be afraid to take some tried and true and work with those, and then massage them into something that works for you. I know a lot of people that will just reject the tried and true and go out there and, just wing it. Can't say that's something I support or think it's a great idea, but some people have done really well. Depends on how comfortable with the risk you are. So if you're not as comfortable and you'd like to have some tried and true, use some industry standards to get started. If you're like, I don't care, I'm gonna throw caution to the wind, throw money at the wall and see what happens, then do that. Let's see, I'm gonna skip that one. Location or proposed location. I don't really have much insight into that. However, I can say if you're a business that requires foot traffic, then the best thing is to pick the place that gets the type of feet you want coming in your door that's going to be attracted to your product or service at the location where you are. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. There's an example I have near where I live at Lebanon and Preston. There is a Tom Thumb, and that's a grocery store if you're not in Dallas-Fort Worth. It attracts a lot of business. There's a Kroger. Kroger shoppers are slightly different than Tom Thumb shoppers. So right next to the Tom Thumb is a store called Heart's Desire. I think that's the name of it. And that store has what I think are fairly highly priced gifts, crafty type things. I've never understood why people buy in there. It doesn't appeal to me, but they do a solid business, and they have been doing a solid business for the 16 or so years I've been going to that store. They are perfectly situated. Right as you walk out of the Tom Thumb on one side to get to your car, they always have this very attractive display of ceramics and crafts and gifts. They change their display often. They keep up with the seasons and holidays and themes. And so they almost always will get a very heavy flow of traffic that maybe didn't intend to go in there, that does. So I think that's a very cool example of how well they chose their location. I wondered myself when I first started going by there, why would you go into a craft store when you're shopping? But for the demographic that shops in that particular Tom Thumb, they might walk out going, oh, I have to buy a gift for the teacher. Oh, I need a gift from my girls group, or I need something, something, something. They walk right in. You can leave your cart right outside. Sometimes you can't take your cart inside, but pop in there, get your quick gift. Doesn't take any time. You might drop 40 bucks, 50 bucks, 100 bucks on a candle or special kind of candy or anything, and then you're on your way. So they are very successful. If you were to put that somewhere, say in a shop by itself where you had to drive straight to that location and only to that location, I don't think they'd be as successful. So that's the only thing I really have to say about that. Distribution channels. I know nothing about that. I don't have distribution channels. Next. All right, so they have, the next thing they do recommend that you do is make a 12-month sales forecast. When I got into the business of investing, I did not do that. I just was looking for my first deal and then my second deal. I didn't do a sales forecast. As a realtor, since I'm only looking for 3 to 5 transactions a year, I didn't do it either. But what I do recommend is if you're going into an industry where you're trying to grow that income quite heavily, please go back to what I said before. Find the right professionals, get yourself a mentor, explain to them what you have to start with so they can help you make a realistic sales forecast. Like I said, I meet a lot of people that say they want to make these unrealistic amounts of money. I sometimes wonder based on what, but I can't speak to that. In any case, we are now at 6:54. I've done a lot of talking. We do have to end this meeting at 7. So I want to take a few minutes just to say, I haven't covered the whole template, but I got through most of it. If there's anything in particular someone would like to ask about that, please let me know. The only other, if there's no questions, I will just address two parts of this before we leave. There's one question about the legal environment that your business will operate in. Again, seek a good attorney. Find out what types of legal protections you need, not just for your business, but for the rest of your assets. Get the opinion of an insurance agent so you know the proper coverages. Make sure you speak to a tax strategist so you know the best way to take revenue in your business. If you need any particular types of trademarks, copyrights, or patents, seek the appropriate legal representation. If you do not know what the threats are as a result of doing business in that arena, and you haven't asked a professional, either a mentor or an attorney, or simply someone just more experienced, you are almost always going to stumble into something. Please, before you start that new venture, understand how impactful legal ramifications can be in your business. And then the last thing they talk about in this business plan, credit policies. I don't think enough people give the right importance to cost of capital, even if it's your savings. Think about if you take your savings out and it's only earning 0.1% a year and you're like, well, it's not doing anything anyway, and you put it in your business, you have to consider what might happen if you lose it. If you're going to be doing something beyond the realm of your savings, then you have to take into account that the cost of capital is an expense against any revenue, and you have to at least have the appropriate parameters to determine if you're successful, including the cost of capital. And I'm going to say this, if you don't have good credit, personal credit, your cost of capital in the beginning of your business is going to be a lot higher than someone who does have good credit. Please do not do what I did. Start improving your business credit from the beginning. I am working on that now. I wish I had started years ago. My personal credit is great. My personal, access to lines of credit to money is great. Now that I'm trying to transition that to more strictly business, I find that I am limited because I am loath to add my personal guarantee to as much. So take it from the mistake that Julie made. Start from the beginning. Seek a business credit specialist that will help you grow your business credit presence. Just like you have your personal credit, they will help you grow your business credit. And that will be very beneficial to your business, far more than your personal credit could be to your business. Start at the beginning. Don't do what Julie did. Other than that, we're almost done. I hope that this discussion on business planning has been useful. As a part of Pitranomics, I believe in establishing your goals, understanding what resources you have available, and creating a plan. So this template, I think, is helpful not only for helping you think about how to construct your business, but how to construct your life. Find the plan that works for your life, and then the parts of your life, find the plans that work for those. Always approach your life strategically so that you can accomplish those goals, those ones that I talk about often, that give your life purpose, because that is the motivation to keep you living your best and optimal life. I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I've talked a lot. I'm going to need some water. And I hope that someone, at least one person, got something from it. I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you next Thursday. So that's all for tonight. I'll see you guys later. I'm going to end this meeting. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.